Rick, you ready?
I am ready, Keith. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about?
This one is how to make the current challenge spiritual. I was wondering if you could give a little guidance or advice how people can do that, no matter what they're experiencing in this moment.
Oh, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask about this. In fact, I'm probably the wrong guy for these podcasts in general. I just have things that work for me. And so people need to take that with a grain of salt. Things that I think may not relate to them. I'm just trying to relate things that I've learned that have helped me avoid suffering. So I guess the first thing when anytime we're talking about spirit is to define what you mean by spirituality. And for me, spirituality means a connection with the mystery of life, of which we are all a part. All life force is part of a spiritual uh, overview of the entire process of living. That there's some animating force about the life force that is spiritual, but it's mysterious and it's magical. So to me, it's a connection with something larger than myself, for which I'll never, ever understand the connection, but I have to have faith in it. And so a spiritual quest and a spiritual existence has a lot to do with getting rid of your opinions about how things work and having some faith and trust in the life force, the animating force of all of life, whatever is behind it. And so I think one of my big challenges has been trying to intellectualize, trying to figure out, trying to be rational about all of this, because I don't think it, at least with what I know in my little brain, can be done. I don't think I can ever understand it in a way. So there's this trust process that I find to be very fulfilling. And that by that I mean there's kind of a, when I realize I'm part of a bigger picture, like example, ToBeRe, when I figure that I am trying my hardest to be my best self, and I know that other people are committed to the practice of ToBeRe doing the same thing on a physical level, on an emotional level, trying to support one another, that is such a wonderful, animating, great feeling. I want more of that. And then when I extrapolate the ToBeRe experience to my neighbors or to people in my practice or to even strangers, and that's really the hardest one to do, then I feel even more fulfilled. And the idea that, we're this drop in the ocean, but we're also the wave of the ocean is really true. And so I feel elevated when I can get to that point in the practice where I'm not focusing on myself. And the spiritual part of it is to be completely absorbed in the life force and accepting the mystery and the magic of it without trying to rationalize and reduce it to some sort of thinking formula. In the spiritual side of things, I think the more you know, the less you need. It's one of those things like you really can put aside your capability of reducing everything to logic. Just let it go and just enjoy the feeling. So that's just a couple of thoughts. I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, but spiritual stuff is a big deal, and it's hardly talked about, frankly. I think it should be something that we should discuss with each other more. My spirituality or my practice or my concern for it, I'm sure, is different than yours and other people's, and that's totally okay. But the feeling at the end of the day, I think, even though we have different views about it, may be the same. That feeling that you're part of something that's important, that's bigger than you, and you don't focus on yourself. That's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I agree, Rick. Thank you. Yeah, when I think of this about, the topic, how to make the current challenge spiritual, I think it goes back to make make what's really important bigger than the challenge that you're going with. Like the challenge that you're dealing with is secondary to what is for me is primary. It's which is me working on myself. I think Michael Singer, I love his definition of spirituality. And it was that, when people think about religion or whatnot, it's so easy to involve like human beings in that part of it. But when you think about spirituality, it's like, I don't know why they call it religion. I mean, why don't they just call, or they try to define spirituality? Why don't you just call it working on yourself? And so I just love that idea of spirituality be me just working on myself. I mean, I think anybody can relate to that, but most people can't. So when I think about making that the primary goal or objective, if I'm working on myself, whatever challenge that I am presented with in that particular moment is secondary.
Mm.
Because if I work on myself, I will be able to interact with that challenge, I think, more effectively,
Mm.
certainly more peacefully than I would have. So if we take, for example, some of the biggest challenges that come with people uh, from person to person, most people can relate to, it has to do with their intimate relationship with another person. So in that kind of relationship, whether you're married or you're dating or you're life partners, if one partner or both people chose to go a separate way, for a lot of people that causes a lot of suffering. Here in the Western world, over in the United States, divorces obviously, often cause a lot of suffering. I have a colleague at work who's going through one right now,
Mm.
and she is expressing how difficult it is and how difficult her former partner is being during this whole process, and there's children involved.
Mm.
And one way to go through that is to just be at the effect of the current situation and to make that the only thing that's important. Or another way to go through it is the way that Tim, our good friend, went through his, which was he used that as an opportunity to work on himself first.
Mm.
And so by doing so, he was able to stay kind. He was able to be free of resentment every step of the way. As attorneys got involved, he was able to take the path that led to inner peace. And he's in a much different space, compared to other people that we know who have gone through something very similar. And that's because he made what was primary, he made it working on himself. And then he was more equipped to deal with the situation. The same thing with me when I was let go, at Mayo Clinic during the pandemic. I made working on myself the primary thing. And what that led me to do was to volunteer. And that volunteering, while it wasn't planned or expected, led to something else that was greater than I could have imagined. And I think about that every single time, like, how do I deal with the current situation? The current situation that is a serious challenge on some levels. Oh, here's how I deal with it. I make it spiritual. And making it spiritual, I make it about being bigger than me, about being bigger than a challenge. And what that yields is, or results in, is me working on myself through the course of this challenge. And then you start to see the challenge as an opportunity for you to deepen and for you to grow. And it becomes this beautiful thing that on the other side of it, you're grateful for. When we look at people that inspire us, it's hardly ever the people that had it easy. It's almost always the people that have had a challenge. And the people that, I mean, there are people that we can be motivated by, but the people that truly inspire us are the people that on the other side of it, they were able to remain kind. They were able to continue to serve, to be loving, to be grateful for the challenge. They didn't use a challenge as motivation. They used a challenge as a path, as an opportunity to let go of more of themselves so they could grow, so they could be better. There is this Netflix documentary that my friend Jana told me about, and this other doctor at Mayo Clinic named Dr. Garudu told me about. And they most recently watched Mission of Joy. And it's a Netflix documentary with the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And it talks about their friendship and about their approach to life, both of which has some incredible challenges in their lives. But there's one part in the documentary where Desmond Tutu is talking about Nelson Mandela. And he's talking about the Nelson Mandela who went into prison at Robben Island for 27 years. That Nelson Mandela who went in went in very much open to the idea of fighting back, fighting violence with violence. That's how he went in. But something happened along the way when he was in there at 27 years. He understood that what was more of a threat to him than the guards and how they treated him or him being imprisoned was that along the way he would lose his capacity to be compassionate and loving. That's what helped him change. He saw himself losing the capacity to see the humanity in other people, losing his own capacity through that very difficult challenge that he was dealing with. And at any moment, he could have blamed the guards and blamed his situation and blamed the South African government about his situation. But him losing his compassion, which would have been understandable, him losing his ability to see the humanity in other people and himself, that would have been him doing it to himself. And so in that way, Desmond Tutu said that that was necessary for Nelson Mandela to have that experience because it allowed him to come out the other side still fully, fully intact, fully possessing his enormous capacity for humanity in himself and for others. And so I think about that. He made that challenging experience spiritual. And whatever people are going through, I think if they think about that as an opportunity to work on themselves through it, oh my God, man. I mean, the peace that they'll feel and experience will be just unbelievable. I know everything that's good that's happened in my life to where it looked like a challenge. If I made it spiritual, which I do these days more than I ever did before, I've always come out on the other side more peaceful and joyful.
Wow. Wow, I'm blown away. I love that idea, Keith, that spirituality is working on yourself. I had never thought of that. That's truly inspirational.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's Michael Singer, and I think about it all the time, man, because people can, at least I was one of them, and I've heard other people talk about like, this religion, that religion, they're at odds because the teaching is different. Michael Singer, he's like, when we talk about religion, it gets twisted. Like our egos get involved. He's like, don't call any of that. Spirituality is working on yourself. I mean,
I really love that. That's
isn't that
fantastic.
beautiful, Rick?
Yeah, that's
It's
fantastic.
beautiful, man. It's just beautiful. And
That
so
is so
that
cool.
that's what I do now. And when my friends and I talk to each other about it, and Brian and I were having a conversation the other day, and I told him the same thing, and he was like, "Man, how are you dealing with this situation?" Oh man, it's about working on myself. I've just made it spiritual. And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm using it to work on myself." And it's freeing. And you're in control then, man. You're not at the effect of whatever's happening. You're
Yeah,
aware. By you making it about working on yourself, you give yourself a chance to be aware throughout the process. The attorney is doing their thing, doing the divorce, they're dividing up assets and stuff like that the whole time. The ego is like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Like I bought this house. I can't believe they're taking the house. No, your higher self is saying, we're working on attachment here. We're working on not
that's right.
that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's making it something bigger than you. It's making it something bigger than you. And then you can go through it and choose peace. Every
Yeah,
step of the way is possible. It's possible. Choose acceptance. Like all of it along the way. If you keep making it about that, making it everything that hits little Keith, the personal self, I'm thinking about, dude, you're working on yourself. Yeah, let that go. Let all that go. That's what this is really about. Somebody, oh, they didn't get my job title right, or they just talked all over me. Yeah, good. That's a good one for you there. Yeah, more of that, please. So, because I'm making this experience spiritual. I'm making it about working on me. Now, if there's action to be taken, I'll take it, but not before I work on me. Like that's got to go first so that when I start working on the situation, that there's none of me that is doing the work. It's something higher than me. It's the consciousness, as you mentioned, that flows through all of life. That's what I want working on the situation, not me. Like I'll make a mess of it. I got a track record. I've got a track record. You don't mind this closet back here, Rick. It's full of all the stuff that went wrong that little me worked on. I would open the door, but I wouldn't be able to close it back up. Everything would fall out of there. So no, I'm keeping that closed. Okay. So I'm not ignoring it. It's there, but we are going down a different path these days. So Rick, thank you so much.
Oh, brother, man, I just love this one. I'm going to replay it as soon as we hang up here. That was really great. Thank you.
Awesome, Rick.
Beautiful, Keith. Thank you so much, man. That was cool.
I love you, man.
I love you. We'll see you next time.